Just want to share with you guys some repairs I did on this Yamaha system. Basically, the cassette would not play. It turned out it was the belts, but not only was it the belts, it was a worst case scenario. A lot of belts from this time period and cassette decks and other things such as CD players were poorly manufactured, and they would, a lot of times you'll find them melted on the reels and on the tape path. And what you have to do is use a combination of Q-tips and paper towels and basically clean them, just thoroughly clean them until you get all the black gunk off. And you can use acetone, which works a little better than alcohol in my opinion, but you can only use that on the metal parts. You don't want to use that on plastic because acetone can be damaging to plastic. So I just wanted to show you a few tips on doing this. First, on the cassette deck. Now, according to the service manual, you're supposed to take off the front and pull the cassette deck out, the front, and service it from there. But you actually don't have to do this. There's a little easier way, in my opinion. You basically got these plastic rivets. Just pull those out. Pull this, take the screws out of this metal piece. Pull that out from under the front face piece. Then you press eject. Pull this cassette cover off. Close it back. There's 4 screws down there. You take those 4 screws out and you kind of maneuver it back and over this way. And at that point, and of course, you got to disconnect any type of cable connected, that might give you a little bit of strain from the board. But then you basically can maneuver and turn it up, and you have full access to the cassette deck at this point. And there's you have to take this metal plate off. There's a few screws there. And then when you get the cassette mechanism out, then when you turn it up, then there's a see if I can show it better. There's this little front piece which will be, facing up when you get it turned up. And I think there's 1 screw in it, but there's 2 snaps. I can't see them, it's so dark, but there's a couple of snaps that you have to press out and pull the metal gently. Do it gently because it's old plastic. You don't want to crack the plastic. So you do that, and that's up under that front plate. There's a counterbelt. So your counterbelt's up under there, and your capstan belt is on this motor right here. So basically you do that, and after you get thoroughly clean from the Q-tips and paper towels and alcohol, you put the belt on, you put all the screws back, and then you put it back. You basically reverse the assembly process, and then provided you don't have any other problems, alignment or something like that, you should be good to go. And okay, so that pretty much covers what I did to the cassette deck. Okay, next is the integrated amp. This is a AX-550, I think. Now this one I went a little deeper into than I really should have had to. The problem ended up being that basically the bass and treble would not work. You didn't get any sound on this unless you put it in pure direct mode. That basically let me know that there was a problem, in the signal path that the bass and treble goes through. And so on this particular model, I ended up I looked through the service manual, and I could have just looked on the back of the integrated amp. There's just so many of these during this time period that had jumpers, and so many that didn't. It just didn't really occur to me to check that. But the problem ended up being these jumpers right here were missing, and that solved that problem. It was a really simple fix. I just didn't think to look for it. But and another problem it had, even in pure direct mode, it would make a intermittent but often an occurring popping noise, a bad popping noise. It ended up being the this switch right here that switches the inputs. Basically, there's a you go on the inside, and there's this little metal piece right up in there, and you can kind of spray in between the holes in the metal, and I thoroughly spray contact cleaner. And you can also spray some. There's a little, you pull this off and there's a little hole up in there, and you spray a little bit, spray on both sides, go back and forth. I do it about 100 times, and when you get about 50, spray some more contact cleaners. Make sure it doesn't get really dried out, and just back and forth, because if it's bad enough to cause popping noise, it's pretty bad shape. So, and there's been some cases where even contact cleaner wouldn't take care of it. So, you know, if that's the case, you might end up having to get a brand new switch. But, you know, in this case, it took care of it. So, you know, that was pretty much all that was wrong with that. So, relatively simple repair, but I made it a little bit harder than it really had to be. So, okay. And on the CD changer, now this and the cassette deck, I basically demonstrated working in the last video, one of the later videos I did. Now, the CD changer, it basically needed a belt too, and a lot of CD changers you'll buy in the used market will need belts, because most of them have this huge drawer, and there's a lot of pressure on that belt, so they wear out over time. But basically, this one is a relatively easy one to repair compared to a lot of changers. I don't have it apart, but you should see it's working now. But behind this belt, somewhere around, behind this drawer, somewhere around in here, when you have it ejected, that's where the belt is, and it's readily accessible. And that's not the case on a lot of CD change, 5-disc CD changers. This one's one of the easier ones to work on. But now, when you press eject, if the belt's bad, obviously it won't eject. So, in the case of this one, it's real easy. The mechanism doesn't lock. A lot of these lock when they're all the way in. This one doesn't. So, what you can do is press eject, and with the top off, basically just push the drawer back, and then unplug it. Then you have easy access to the belt. And unfortunately, in the case of this one, it also had the melted belt, so I had to basically do the same thing I did on the cassette deck. And these tar that's on these takes a good while. It's a pretty good little job. Like, between this and the cassette deck, I probably went through like half a box of Q-tips, and you want to use the Q-tips with the wood on them, because they're a lot sturdier than the plastic ones. Those are too flimsy to use for something like this. But basically, that's all it was, is just the belt. So that took care of that. So relatively easy repairs. So but just make sure you use the proper cleaning techniques, and you should be good to go. So all right, well, hope y'all have a good one.